Iguodala. Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Good evening and welcome, Cavs fans. If I could put us on the screen, we are here. The Block, the Shot, the Stop. The whole crew: Skylar Webkirk, Tim Daniel, Kevin Lynch here for a very special. The All-Star break is finally ending, and we just can't wait to talk about Cavs episode. So tonight, very special episode. I'm going to set it up, and I'll let the guys kind of chime in before we get started. But we are going to do a how the 24-25 Cleveland Cavaliers are built. And they were built over a 6-year period, starting in 2019 up until as recently as an hour or two ago, though we won't get into that. But so we did a deep dive of the job that mostly Kobe Altman and the front office have done to bring in all the players in this roster in a variety of fashions, kind of what the kind of sliding doors, other alternatives could have been. And that kind of the story that has led to this historic start to the regular season for the Cavs. Tim, before we actually get in and get started, what are any thoughts on this project, or while you were doing your end of it?
I would like to say that I had to do a lot of deep research, but sadly, with being the basketball nerd I am, it was kind of pretty simplistic for me, but I was really excited about it. I like the idea of how you came up with the game plan to do so. It's very how the West was won. And so I really dig it. So this is fun. I thought this was a great exercise, and I really enjoyed kind of looking at some of the old drafts and stuff like, oh yeah, there was that guy. So it's going to be really, really fascinating.
Yeah. Skylar, Mr. Trade, we were just talking about, we didn't realize, but you were handling the trade portions of the roster. Any thoughts from you before we get started as you're kind of getting this together?
Yeah. I mean, it's like one of those things that everybody wants to revisit the trade after the fact or after the dust has settled. So it's really cool to go back and kind of see, okay, they gave up XYZ draft picks. Who do those people even turn out to be on these other teams? Because, as we've talked about with, the Hunter trade, they had a bunch of second round picks, and those are basically like buying lottery tickets. So it's really cool to see kind of how the fallout of some of these trades were. As well as just seeing who was on the roster when these trades were made. Because I know from the start of this kind of rebuild, there are always questions. Is this the right move? Is this the right piece? Just with the team that Kenny had handed to him, really. So it's cool to kind of go through wow, I can't believe we went from JaVale McGee being our backup center to, Jared Allen.
Yeah, no, it is. It's fun. It's fun. It's always fun and nostalgic to do kind of this revisionist history. What makes it the most fun for me is it really highlights how good of job Kobe Altman and his staff have done over the last 6 years, kind of zagging in a NBA world of zigging right now, in the fact that everyone wants to make a big move, 2-3 moves today to have success tomorrow. He took the long-term approach, frankly, pretty much as soon as LeBron left, and said, we're going to build a winner, but we're going to do it in kind of a very well thought out, methodical way. So even if it takes a few years, and it took 3 to 4 years to get back in the playoffs even, and now it took a total of 6 years to get to being the number one seed in the East, 54 games of the year. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. We kind of broke this up into tiers, and I'll set it up as we go along. A lot of the tiers are kind of they're chronological, meaning they all happen within a year or two of each other, and also kind of significance to the roster. So to start it out, we have tier 1, and that is Darius Garland, Dean Wade, I apologize, and Isaac Okoro. They were all acquired in about a year time span. starting with, and who we'll start with, is Darius Garland in the 2019 draft. He is officially the longest term Cavalier at this point, even though he's still only like 25 years old, I think. So Garland was drafted in 2019. He was the 5th overall pick. If you look back at that draft, the guys picked ahead of him: Zion Williamson, John Morant, RJ Barrett, ironically DeAndre Hunter, and then Garland being the 5th pick. And then I won't read all the names, but kind of going down past him. Like, realistically, this was the perfect pick for the Cavs in this situation. Like, Zion and Morant have each had their own struggles, but you could argue they have higher ceilings, even though they're not achieving their ceiling right now. You could not. There's no one that was picked after Garland that would have been a better pick. And for what the Cavs need and the reliability that Garland provides, like, I think you could rate this one a 10 out of 10.
Not to mention, the Cavs maybe got a little lucky that he dropped to them, considering those couple teams ahead of him. Obviously, Zion, Ja were going to go 1 and 2. But if he doesn't get hurt at Vanderbilt, he might have been a top 3 pick, because he only played kind of like the Kyrie Irving route. He only played about a handful of games in college. So yeah, this was definitely one that kind of dropped in their laps, and it worked out to be for the best.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, the one difference in that from Kyrie, that's a really good comparison. The only difference is Kyrie came back at the end of the year. Darius Garland got hurt, like, I think it was like 8 or 9 games into the year, and then was out and was injured kind of even going into the draft process, which I think hurts him. I think you're right. Had he been fully healthy, played a full college season, I think there's a high probability he would have been the 3rd pick in the draft. So kind of, you never want anyone to get injured, but his injury kind of worked out for the Cavs. Sorry, go ahead, Skylar.
No, you're good. I'm trying to like remember. I think the year before or year after is when Atlanta took Trae Young.
No,
the year after. Before. Okay.
The year before.
So theoretically, like, the Hawks, I guess the Lakers were originally the pick for DeAndre Hunter, but like, imagine what a different world we're in if the Hawks traded and got Darius Garland as the 4th round pick instead of DeAndre Hunter. Like, completely different world.
Yeah, it really is. And to kind of clean that up, Garland only played either 5 or 6 games in college. He was hurt at the end of November. Like, he had just set his career high the game before with 33 points, and then he gets hurt in a game against Kent State. It was actually a meniscus injury that put him out for the whole year. He declares for the draft, and the rest is history. He ends up getting selected 5th and has turned into now a 2-time All-Star with the Cavs, currently having his best season. And I think he is just like on the cusp of his prime. Like, I think his prime just started. So not a whole lot. Couldn't have been a whole lot better for the Cavs in the Darius Garland thing. Tim, I believe Dean Wade is yours, and he was technically the next one acquired. I think he was acquired later that night or the next day after Darius Garland was. So take it away with Dean Wade.
Yeah, so Dean Wade was undrafted, which is kind of surprising realistically, because the back end, and like Skylar just mentioned, 2nd round picks are lottery tickets, but Dean Wade was a guy who did not get drafted, even though his junior year he was parade first team All-American, 2-time All Big East. 2-time All Big 12 at Kansas State. So for his situation, the Cavs got him on a 2-way in 2019. First year didn't play too much. Kind of had the guys in front of him like Kevin Love. Was a name in front of him. Ante Zizic was, I think, in his last year at that time, if I remember correctly. So those were the guys kind of ahead of him at the time. And Dean Wade has worked himself up to now being a regular part of this Cavs team when healthy. Has signed contract extension multiple times now to be with this team. Has become, I know, Cavalier, very big on the Dean Wade advanced statistics and the coincidental his record, the Cavs record when he's in the lineup thing, and has become a solid, not as athletic 3-and-D guy, but a really decent defender who can knock some shots down and play in a playoff series. So he's been really, really helpful for this Cavs team during this growth.
Yeah, he feels like a diamond that just kind of, not many people become undrafted guys in the NBA. I mean, like we said, 2nd round picks are lottery picks. So to go undrafted and be at a high contributing level as he is for a team that has title contentions, like it's got to be a dream come true. That's a Hollywood script right there.
Yeah, and I think Dean Wade was somewhat of a pioneer for Kobe Altman in the way he identified, acquired, and developed players kind of on the back end of the roster that worked their way up the roster, like meaning identify somebody who is either a very late round draft pick, cut from another team, or in Dean's case, an undrafted free agent. Get him on the G League team. Develop them, sign them to a 2-way deal, and then sign them to, usually a 3 to 4 year, very low annual amount salary, and then and watch them go from being kind of those last guys on the bench to a real contributor in this team. I think Dean Wade was kind of the pioneer for that, and then there's been several more examples over the last few years, and I'll kind of hold off there. We'll get into them as we go. Any more thoughts on Dean Wade before we move on?
As someone who has a beard, I have to say he also has an incredible beard. So,
as someone who can't grow a beard, I can't wait for him to get back on the court.
Yes. Dean, we'd love to see you back on the court here soon. Another guy we'd love to see back on the court soon, Isaac Okoro, which I actually just saw that he's now questionable to return tomorrow night. So whether it's tomorrow night, it seems like his return is imminent. And Okoro has been, I think, overall a really successful acquisition and player for the Cavs, with a little bit of frustration kind of thrown in throughout parts of his career, and we'll get into that. But like Garland, he was the 5th pick in the draft 1 year after Garland in 2020. The 2020 draft was an incredibly weird draft because that's like right as COVID starting. They couldn't do the traditional, NBA combines and things like that. And it's one of the weirder drafts ever. And there's guys who were super hyped up who flamed out early with their NBA careers. Other guys, more towards the back end of the first round that ended up becoming stars. But Okoro, given for what a 5th pick usually is, like he's probably right about the median of success for a 5th round pick. You're like a solid starter that has like 1 or 2 elite skills and is an overall kind of solid contributor to a team. Skylar, I'll kick it to you for thoughts on Isaac.
I think he was exactly what the Cavs needed out of this draft. I mean, look at the names in this draft. Not too many of them are as good of a contributor as Isaac Okoro.
Yeah.
So the fact that the Cavs got him at 5th, thank God the Bulls don't know how to draft, because they could have easily taken him at 4.
Yeah.
And then there's not really anybody, maybe other than Advia, that I would really like to have at 5. And obviously hindsight's always 2020. But
yeah. Well, and the top 10 it's funny that like you could say there is more success in the last 15 picks of the first round than the first 15 picks of the first round. Yeah. Like, and that's why it's like the weirdest draft ever. Like guys who were drafted like later, Tyrese Halliburton was drafted 12, Tyrese Maxey was drafted 21.
Precious.
Yes. Jaden McDaniels, who is somebody who I think would fit in really well on this Cavs team, was drafted 28. Desmond Bain, 30. So there's a lot of guys like, high-level contributors to all-star level players that were drafted later in this draft. And I actually think a lot of this has contributed to, the coronavirus that was going around and not be able to have the traditional draft process. And given all of those obstacles, I think Okoro wasn't obviously the home run that Garland was, but was a very solid pick. And the fact that he's still on the team 5 years later, he's on a very team-friendly deal. If they can, help him get a little bit more consistently healthy, I mean, I think this is going to turn into like a very good acquisition and career with the Cavs for Isaac Okoro.
I mocked Obi Toppin to the Cavs in this draft many of times. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I was wrong. Not that he isn't a good player, but
I prefer having Garland or Okoro.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, So those are the 3 longest term Cavs, and it is kind of funny nowadays in the NBA. Not a lot of teams have guys who have been on the team for like in their 6th season now. So and the fact that they're all still contributing, they're all guys that we hope will still be on the Cavs for several years, especially Garland, but even Wade and Okoro. So that's kind of our like group 1 as far as how that's like phase 1, I should say, is probably a better way to say it, for how these Cavs are built. Phase 2 is probably the most important phase. Some recognizable names in this list: Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, Evan Mobley, and Donovan Mitchell, all acquired within, I want to say, within a year, maybe even like 6-7 months of each other. That really kind of had probably the biggest effect on turning around this franchise from, kind of a not great place to where it is. And well, let's talk about that. Before we actually talk about these players, Skylar, I'll let you rattle it off because it's something you pointed out, kind of where the Cavs were 5 years ago to where they quickly became after that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we kind of got through the draft, and that was really the pieces that started moving, started things into the direction. Still not anywhere close to playoff aspirations. So here was the opening lineup for that 2020 season after drafting Okoro and before having Garland. At this time, keep in mind, everybody in the NBA said Garland is the worst point guard in the league. So you have the quote unquote worst point guard in the league, and this is the lineup that they rolled out there. Let me zoom in so you can read it a little more. Your starters of Colin Sexton, Larry Nance, Isaac Okoro, Darius Garland, and then Andre Drummond, who I kind of forgot played for the Cavs.
So did he?
Well, yeah, this was the year I think they waived him towards the end of the year, with a bench of JaVale McGee, Jetty Osman, Dean Wade, Damian Dotson, and Dylan Windler, and Marquise Bolton.
My favorite part about this, comparing it to the modern day Cavs, is Andre Drummond shot 18 times in this game. Donovan Mitchell leads the Cavs with 18.6 shot attempts a game. Darius Garland shoots the ball less than 16 times. Evan Mobley less than 13. And Andre Drummond is just letting it fly here in this lineup.
They won this game too. This is LaMelo Ball's NBA debut.
This is. Look at you. Yes, they did win this game, and it gave you like, do the Cavs have something when you're way too early? Like they win. It's like when your baseball team wins opening day, and you're like, they can win the World Series, and obviously they can't.
Yes. So that's a good kind of like, I don't know, bullet point that where the Cavs were right after phase 1 and before phase 2 that we're about to start with. And Skylar, I will kick it back to you to talk about, and let me set this up for a second. We realize that Karis LeVert and George Niang are no longer on the Cavs. They were a part of building this season's team, so we're going to include them in this. We may make it a little abbreviated, and we will talk about DeAndre Hunter at the end, but he's only played two games with the Cavs, so there's not a lot to go on in his Cavs career. So with that, I will kick it to you, Skylar, to talk about how the Cavs acquired Jared Allen and Karis LeVert.
Yeah, so I will share my screen again because, like I said, I went through who they gave up, what picks they gave up, and what those picks actually even turned into. So let me do this one more time. So obviously we got Jared Allen in the 4-team, what the hell is going on? James Harden is going to Brooklyn deal. In that deal, we got back Jared Allen, who was only making $3.9 million that year. Taurean Prince, and then a Euro stash that we never ended up doing anything with. All we gave up was Dante Exum and a second-round pick that turned into Tristan Newton. Karis LeVert in this shuffle ends up going to Indiana this year. So now we have JaVale McGee, Andre Drummond, and Jared Allen all on your roster at this point when this trade goes down. So why? And then, I mean, you can just see what Houston got back and all the conditions around it. I mean, good Lord.
I think there's an argument to be made that this is still the crown jewel of the Kobe Altman era. Is this trade, because there were no reason for the Cavs to be in this trade, and he took it as an opportunity to basically just rob from this trade. Really, it was. I mean, I should say, put it simply, it was a money thing that they needed a third team involved to make everything work. And so the Cavs jumped in basically because they had room in their salary cap, ended up acquiring an all-star level center. And Taurean Prince is a solid role player, but that's not around anymore. But like for virtually nothing, acquired Jared Allen, who is a top, 6 or so center in the NBA, which is phenomenal.
I'll never forget when he got thrown in the trade, and I was like, Cleveland got what? It's like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I legit was like, no freaking way they got Jared Allen. It's like, that's their center of the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just absolutely, like, I think most Cavs fans feel this way, but just this was the turning point of like, okay, we're kind of doing some stuff, we're drafting some guys. This was really the move that was like, oh, we have a direction now. Like we're ascending from this point.
I would agree. I would agree with this, because this happens, and then like a few months later, the next two things we're going to talk about. Evan Mobley's drafted. A few months after that, Donovan Mitchell's traded for. So those three acquisitions, all coming within such a short time of each other, change the trajectory of the franchise. And the next two, at least the Mitchell deal, might not happen without this deal happening first.
Yeah.
Sure.
So now, like, picture in your head, we have Taurean Prince, Jared Allen, and everything on the roster. And really, we gave up Dante Exum and a pick that turned into Tristan Newton. So,
yeah,
didn't really give up that much. I got to switch tabs here. So let me stop this, present. So then we flip So then we trade Taurean Prince for Ricky Rubio and a second round pick and cash consideration. So Ricky Rubio was great that first run here with the Cavs. Like, it was great having him here. Really, I think he took a lot of mentorship over Darius Garland and helped Darius become the playmaker that he is now. So see you, Taurean. Thanks for your service. Hello, Ricky Rubio. The following, the following offseason, they trade Ricky Rubio for Karis LeVert. Ricky Rubio and 2 picks that turned into good pieces for Indiana with Andrew Nebhard and Ben Shepherd. So Indiana actually got a nice,
they always
do.
pieces.
Mm-hmm.
They always do. They know how to draft.
Yeah, this ended up, the final of these kind of trade steps, you said, this ended up being a win-win, really. I mean, this isn't, and there's nothing wrong with the other team winning a trade as long as you're winning it too, right? So, like, I think this is great. The only other thing I'll say about this incredibly detailed work you put together, Skylar, is I'll just say the best acquisition or the team that did the best on this whole board is the Thunder, because I make it a habit of not saying anything bad about James Johnson. I think he's the scariest person in the world. So.
Yes.
That reminds me. When we traded Ricky Rubio for Karis LeVert, Ricky Rubio was, I think, an ACL injury or Achilles injury.
Yeah, the Pacers were taking the salary,
Yeah, it was literally just a salary swap. And then we threw in picks to kind of sweeten that deal.
Right.
But that turned into Karis LeVert and Luke Travers.
Yeah, and give the Pacers some credit in this, because had they made different draft picks with those 2 picks the Cavs gave them, then this trade could look differently. They did a really good job selecting players with the draft capital they got. Like Andrew Nebhart for a second round pick is a home run second round pick. Ben Shepard's a solid contributor for them for an end of the first round. So give them credit. They did really best draft picks ever to be trading someone, and they just did well with them.
Yeah, and and that's why Indiana just kind of always stays competitive. They know how to draft. I don't remember them really missing a draft pick really ever.
It got to the point these last couple of years where the guys they were drafting were on the G League team, and these are lottery guys, and they were still contributing really well, and they were just bringing back and forth. Like Jarris Walker was on the lottery. It was playing for the Mad Ants last year.
They just do a very good job. They're
awesome.
Like the Tampa Bay Rays of basketball.
That's a great comp, actually. That's a really great comp.
So now we start seeing this team piece together a little bit more into like what we know it. Jared Allen, Darius Garland, Okoro, Karis LeVert. We kind of start seeing these cornerstone pieces that stick around for. I mean, all those guys other than Karis LeVert really are here. This entire way up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I think Kevin's having some technical problems over here, so we'll keep an eye for when he gets back here as well. So I guess that's where I come in here, and I bring in, obviously, if anyone else is going to do this, I was going to revolt from the project. I'll keep an eye on when Kevin's ready to come back, and that's Evan Mobley. So
yes,
Skylar, easiest draft pick in Cavs history besides LeBron James. Not even close.
Gotta be.
Not even close. So, Kevin did the thing where he's like, he didn't list all the guys drafted after Darius Garland. I'm going to list Evan Mobley's NCAA accolades for 1 year at USC. You ready for this?
I'm ready to hold on. I'm sitting.
Pac-12 Rookie of the Year. Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. Pac-12 All Freshman. Pac-12 All Defense. Pac-12 All Tournament. All Pac-12 All Conference. Pac-12 Player of the Year. Consensus All American. And in the NCAA tournament was NCAA All Region. So
Jesus.
This was, without a shadow of a doubt, the second easiest pick in Cavs. I don't know. Kyrie Irving. I'd probably go LeBron, Kyrie, Evan Mobley as far as easiest picks in Cavs history.
I still think there were questions with Kyrie because of the injury at Duke.
No, didn't matter. He was getting taken first.
Thank you. You don't think there's any speculation?
No. Thank you, Clippers, for that draft, by the way. So I look at this draft all the time, and when it came out, this is back when I was working and I was doing mock drafts and things like that. And I said, in this draft, because I knew how the Cavs were playing throughout the season, I said, if the Cavaliers can find a way to get in position to draft Evan Mobley, and they can get Evan Mobley, they are going to be happy for 10 years. And we are now in year 4, and we're very happy. Going
year 4, and we have, 5 more years now? Because with the extension?
Yeah, and the only guy that really kind of could have been a rival to him at this pick was realistically Scotty Barnes. And I like Scotty Barnes. I don't like him as much as I like Mobley. I didn't then. I don't now. And this is a really good draft. I mean, big picture.
It's a very good draft.
Cade and Jalen Green, obviously. Cade's an all-star. Jalen Green, I think, will be an all-star at some point in his career. I think we have Kev back here. So Jalen Suggs, obviously, has been huge. Jonathan Kuminga has been part of a championship team. Franz is an awesome player who probably would have been an all-star this year if he didn't get hurt. But Mobley, to me, I'm sure there's a lot of people who disagree with me, but to me, Mobley's the best player in this draft. And I'm not saying that if I were the Pistons, I would have taken him. I understand why they took Cade, and they probably should have taken Cade for where they were at that time. But Houston had a great chance to take him and really kind of set up their future with him and Şengün. And thank you for not doing that, because now we have a guy who's going to be a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate every year, an all-star every year. And you just heard him say it the other day. In the next 5 years, the 2 best players in the world are going to be him and Victor Wembanyama. And I don't have any issues. I have no issues whatsoever with him thinking that.
No, you shouldn't. He's phenomenal. I think clearly him and Cade are the top 2 team players in this draft, and I think both teams got the guy they wanted or needed the most.
Yes,
right. Neither team lost in that, and but that aside, I think the 2 of them separate themselves from this draft class. And I will say, when you can get a defensive anchor that can be one of the best defenders in the league that is as versatile as Evan Mobley is, that's one of the hardest things to find in the NBA. So for that reason, I have no problem with someone, with yourself or somebody else, saying like they prefer Mobley as the player out of this draft.
Yeah.
Well,
and
out
like
of this draft, like Cade and Evan Mobley, they were really the only two that could be the best player on virtually every team in the league. Like all these other guys are great role players. They play great important roles on the teams that they're on. But you could put Evan Mobley on probably every team outside of maybe the Warriors and call him the best player on that team.
he's probably the best player on the Warriors right now.
Sure, I'm just saying because Steph Curry still plays for the team, but
yeah, and for the most, the only guy I'd push back on is Franz Wagner, because when Banchero was hurt for a good portion of the year, he did take the lead role and looks really capable in that. So, but he's probably the only other guy now that you could make an argument for. I mean, some people would make an argument for Scotty Barnes. I think Scotty Barnes is a really high level role player, like, third best guy on a championship team. I don't think he's like a star in the making. Franz is the only guy that I think you could potentially make an argument for, but otherwise you're right. There is, even with Franz, I think there's a big drop off after Cade and Evan in this draft.
Scotty Barnes got Rookie of the Year that year. Still, he probably did deserve it statistically wise, but like, come on, we all knew Bellingham who the better player was. So
he was also the only guy on the Toronto Raptors that year.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, no, obviously Evan Mobley, incredibly important, and what an incredible player. All right, take it away, Donovan Mitchell, maybe the one we could talk about the most.
Yeah, let me get my link here. I mean, this one's a little
as
not
he's
as
doing
complicated.
This, do you guys remember where you were when you found out this trade happened? And because there was no rumor of Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland. There was no Cleveland's a possibility. It was just I remember I was on vacation. I looked at my phone and I was with Grace's family and I was like, hey, the Cavs just got Donovan Mitchell. And they were like, wait, what? It was one of those kind of things.
There are 2 times in my life where I played a perfect couch GM. I told everybody before a move ever happened, I was like, those moves ended up happening and working out really well. The first one was the Reds should go sign Nick Castellanos. I said that months before they actually did. They did it. He was a great tender while he was with the Reds. The second one was I told everybody and this is right when the Cavs went from everybody thinking they're the worst team in the league to being in the play-in and losing. Then they lost to Atlanta and New York.
Back-to-back years, yeah.
Well, they had two chances in that play-in that year.
Who was it? It was Atlanta was the last game.
Right.
That was the game that got him eliminated. Who was it?
I don't remember who the first one was. But after that, I said the Cavs should go trade for Donovan Mitchell. They have the assets to do it, and Utah is blowing it up because they just traded Rudy Gobert. Mm-hmm. So I said the Cavs should do this, and then they did it, and I ran around my house hooting, hollering, and screaming because I'm such a great couch GM.
Yeah, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of this trade. I think this was a great trade that became an unbelievable franchise-altering trade when Donovan Mitchell signed an extension here, right?
Yep.
Like, had you got him for 2 years, you still do that trade every time. The fact that you hope you're set up to have him here for at least 5 or 6 years and you're not even in the middle of that yet makes this, all that much more of a home run trade.
Absolutely. So the trade ended up with just getting Donovan Mitchell for the Cavs, sending out Colin Sexton, who it was kind of a sign and trade situation because he was up. So they kind of signed him to a 4-year extension and then traded him. Lauri Markkanen, who was unbelievable for the Cavs in that first kind of run at it. And then their first round draft pick of that season, Ochai Agbaji, who has since been traded to Toronto and is actually being a decent role player for Toronto right now.
Yeah.
Came with 3 unprotected first round picks and then 2 pick swaps that
They also just traded in the DeAndre Hunter trade.
they traded in the DeAndre Hunter trade, and then Atlanta traded, or not Atlanta, but Utah traded their half of it and with Phoenix. So I really don't know who gets these picks. Probably Cleveland, because they're going to have a better record than all these other teams anyway. So theoretically, they traded 3 first-round picks and 3 players.
Yeah, and this trade, while you're trading for a top 10, 12 player in the NBA in Donovan Mitchell, you're also trading for a culture and a championship window and other things like that. A lot of these other role players and things that have fit in the Cavs have fit because Donovan Mitchell has been in place, right? So he brings value beyond what just his stats on the court.
Absolutely. And the fact that Donovan Mitchell has been in the playoffs every year of his career, there's a reason for that. It's not just because Utah was lucky. It's not because Donovan Mitchell is such a high caliber player. He's not only bringing a winning culture, he's bringing playoff mentality and playoff experience to a young group of guys. You have Jared Allen, who is 23, Darius Garland's 21 at this time. Evan Mobley just got drafted. So you got young guys, and you're bringing in a proven bona fide playoff contender to your team. This was a swing for the fences move.
This felt like, we've talked about this a couple times on the show through this season. This felt like step 1 in getting out of the LeBron James shadow. This was like the first move that said okay, that is the past. This is that we're moving forward. This is the guy we're kind of going behind. And it was, it hasn't sucked.
Well, this is the guy. From the moment you acquire him, you start seeing Donovan Mitchell jerseys show up in Rocket, whatever they call it now. So other guys have developed into that. Obviously, Garland, Mobley, all these guys. But Mitchell was the one, really the only player that was established when the Cavs acquired him. Everyone else has ascended since the Cavs have had him.
Yeah.
Mitchell has just continued to be, a superstar in this league. And getting, as great as it is to get someone, I don't want to say buy low, but to get them before their prime and to help them ascend, getting someone who is already established to the level that he is, again, it's just a culture setting move.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think we've all said it every time. Every single one of these picks, absolutely worth it. I would have paid more. You do this trade every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Agreed. Well, that wraps up kind of the phase 2 plan that we talked about. A lot of, and now we now have our core 4 in place, a couple of the key role players, and now it's about filling out the roster around these guys, right? And to do that, there was a lot of free agents that the Cavs brought in the 23 offseason, the 24 offseason, and we're gonna run through a few of them. I'm gonna go first with the biggest name signing when they brought him in, and that was Max Strus. Max was coming off of what I think I remember, and maybe other people remember, as a super successful playoff run with the Heat, where he was really involved.
Finals appearance.
Yeah. While the Heat was good, and you remember a lot of Max Strus in that, looking back, the numbers don't reflect it as well as the memory does, how good he was in those playoffs. I think Max is I guess a mixed bag as far as the Cavs signing. I think he is a very solid player. I think he is a great, team player, guy to have on the team, in the locker room. I mean, things like that. I do think it's turning out to be a little bit of an overpay, and the fact that they have other guys on the roster that can kind of do some of the things that Max can do. All that said, I think this is I think I would put this in the category of like a solid move by the Cavs, not a like catastrophe for, even though he's signed for $15+ million for 4 years, but not quite, is great of a signing or move as some of these other ones were.
Not like when the Lakers signed the Cavs big man after the championship year.
Timothy Mozgov.
Yeah, signed him to a ridiculous contract.
They signed him and Luol Deng. Yeah. No, this is not, Max Strus is not like a catastrophic contract. I think it's like it's turning out to be a little bit of an overpay and a little bit of they probably didn't know when they signed him that they were going to bring in other guys that could kind of do some of the things that Max does. So I just don't think it's like a perfect fit. Like a lot of these are like just win executive of the year type moves. I just think this is an okay one. It's aging okay, not terrible, but not like fantastic.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I am going to turn to Tim, the podcast favorites, Ty Jerome.
Woo. Yeah, when I saw the list come out, who had who, I was very excited when you gave me this one. I mean, obviously, the biggest story about him was, I won't get into the nerdy NCAA champion stuff that we've already talked about quite a bit with him, and now new once again teammate DeAndre Hunter, but was a guy who wrote a lot of benches through his NBA tenure, drafted by the Sixers, traded to the Suns, spent a year in Phoenix, went to KC for a couple of years, and had a year in Golden State with Kenny Atkinson playing behind Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, where he really ascended quite a bit and really kind of started to get his name out there. Obviously, JB Bickerstaff kind of sees this, and the crew brings him in. They sign him to a nice deal. And here's the other thing about him, man, is we talked about this quite a bit. This is a guy who was in and out of the G League quite a bit. I mean, signed with the Rockets, got cut by the Rockets, signed with Golden State. Golden State was really where it all clicked for him. And then they got to the point where they couldn't afford him because of all the money they're paying Steph, Klay, and Draymond. So he kind of drops into Cleveland's lap as they're trying to put this team together. They get bounced by the Knicks. They realize, hey, we need to get a lot more scoring and shooting and with our depth. And Ty Jerome's a perfect fit. Unfortunately, gets hurt his first year in Cleveland. But, we've seen this year that patience definitely paid off with him. So.
Absolutely. And it's so, like, I just love that he's already a champion as a Cavalier. Like, that feels pretty cool.
For what's worth, I had that joke first. Everyone's trying to make their damn memes.
Yeah. I hopped on with our buddy Zach MBA on his podcast yesterday, and I said, he asked me my favorite thing about the Cavs year so far. And of course I said like 4 things, but one of them was just Ty Jerome in general, because I think he has exceeded expectations definitely more than any Cavalier, and maybe as much as anyone in the NBA this year. For what you thought you might get from him versus what he's delivered, he has been everything and more that the Cavs could have asked for.
Yeah, I think I've said it before, but I think the Ty Jerome playing as well as he has changed how the Cavs front office approached this season, because they were about $2.5 million into the luxury tax. It's about what Ty Jerome makes. They probably thought, hey, this is a guy coming off of a major injury. We'll see what he brings us, but probably cut bait and find someone to eat that money to deduct the tax.
Yeah,
he's playing out of his mind. You can't lose him. Like, he's worth way more than $2.5 million.
Yeah, and he is for the, like I said, Max Strus contract being okay. This is like one of the best contracts in the NBA right now. I think before it's all said and done, you'll see him start showing up on ballots for 6th man of the year, the way he's performed this year. And we'll use this as a transition. I'm going to kick it to Skylar for George Niang next. Phenomenal guest on George Niang's podcast. I finally listened to it for the first time, mostly to hear his reaction about the trade.
Yeah,
and listen to the last 2 episodes. It was great. And even though he is not a member of the team anymore, I'm going to kick it to Skylar, talk about George Niang, and you can just take it Tristan Thompson after that as well.
Yeah. So Niang, kind of a just consummate role player. Couple of different teams around the league. He was 6 years in by the time the Cavs got him. Cavs gave him quite a big payday as far as a jump. You know, he went from making $3.4 million in Philly, like I said, riding the bench, to $8.8 million in Cleveland. Kobe Altman definitely saw enough in George to
We get a lot of commenters on that.
we get a ton of comments about that's not how you say his name. He saw enough in Niang to give him, you know, a 3-year contract. You know, so yeah, just kind of bounced around the league. Definitely a bench guy, but do you guys know that he is I don't know how to say this better, but the most winning player in the league? He has the best win-loss record of any player in the league.
Well, part of that is just his availability. I mean, he played
Yes.
in every single game for over a year and a half that the Cavs had him. And some people will say he was an overpay, but like I also think he over delivered for what your
For sure.
the expectations were of him. And I think Niang will never be, just because of the things he's not, as far as athleticism and size and everything goes, never going to be somebody that's like a high level contributor in like the playoffs and everything. But I think he's the perfect guy to have on your roster for the regular season, between his reliability, the different types of roles he can have, the fact that he's maybe one of the nicest, coolest guys in the NBA, and was probably had a big role in, like, you know, just kind of the vibes that the Cavs were giving off for a lot of this year. So like, I have no problem with George Niang. I wish him well in the Hawks. I totally understand why that move was made, and I think the Cavs had to make it. But I think the Cavs and Cavs fans should thank George for his contributions, because I think he over delivered what you would have expected from him.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%.
So leading into from George to kind of his post game buddy, Tristan Thompson, a Cavs favorite, a Cavs legend, obviously big piece in that championship team. So good to have him back. He's definitely back as a bench vibes guy. You know,
Victory cigar.
You're like, I don't know if I want Tristan Thompson in unless it's garbage time.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, he signed last year. He's just kind of rolling on 1-year deals. Signed last year a 1-year deal, signed this year a 1-year deal. But interesting enough, he is 11 years with the Cavs. That's more, or right at how many years LeBron was here? How many years? I should have done this before I brought it up.
11. Yeah.
11. Yeah. 7 and 4. Yep. That's
so
exactly
he's been a Cav as long as LeBron has. In those 11 years, accumulated $103 million. That divvies out to about $9 million a year, which feels good, because I remember when he held out to get that big contract with the Cavs, everybody was like, damn, that's a lot for Tristan Thompson. But right now it's looking like it's averaging out pretty well.
Yeah. Tristan is the Toronto Raptors fans' favorite nowadays. And yeah, I mean, he's a fine veteran presence to have around the team. I don't think we need to debate who is more impactful in their 11 years between him and LeBron.
But I don't know, man.
They both have one. They both have the same ring.
Yeah, but at this point, I have no problem with having Tristan kind of at the end of your bench for kind of that veteran leadership, keeping the guys loose, and as long as we thought he might get squeezed out of the roster so they could bring in someone a little bit cheaper, even though he's on a vet minimum, because he's been here 11 years, he makes a little bit more than other guys might. But assuming he doesn't screw up the salary cap or anything like that, I'm fine with him being the 12th guy on this team.
He had that weird stretch in his career too, where it's like he leaves Cleveland, he goes to the Celtics, goes to the Kings, goes to the Pacers, goes to the Bulls, retires, goes to ESPN, plays for the Lakers in the playoffs, and comes back to Cleveland.
Forgot about that.
I forgot the retirement part.
I did too.
That's
wild. All right.
He definitely is like I think we brought it up before, but like I'm fine with him being the Udonis Haslem of the Cavs. Just don't play, but be there to be a leader and be a vet.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, we're gonna get down to a couple more guys on the bench of the rosters, and I kind of wanted to do these two guys together, Sam Merrill, Craig Porter Jr., because their paths to the Cav are pretty similar. Sam Merrill actually was drafted. He was the last pick in the draft, I believe, by the Bucks. In the 21 draft, bounced around for a couple of seasons. The Cavs signed him to a G League contract a couple of years ago, and he did well enough that he went that track that Dean Wade did, signed him to a G League, then a 2-way contract, and then to, I think it was a 4-year deal at about $2.5 million a year. In 2023, Sam has become a solid contributor, like probably most well known for his 3-point shooting. Although this year he hasn't shot as well, and he's actually contributed a little bit more defensively and in some other areas than you might expect of him. But really solid guy to have on your team, given that he has an elite skill in the shooting. He signed on a super cheap contract, and the fact that you're able to develop him the way you did. And I'll talk about Craig Porter Jr., and then we'll kind of open it up for both of them, because Craig Porter Jr. was similar, only he was an undrafted free agent, signed to a 2-way by the Cavs, then played for the Charge for a half season. Then they did the same thing. They signed him to like a 4-year deal at $2 to $3 million a year. And I think Craig Porter Jr. by next season could be a real contributor, like in the regular rotation, in the top 10 rotation, getting regular minutes for them. So Skylar, I'll go to you first. Like, you can talk about either of the guys, or if you just want to talk about kind of this pathway that they've created, that they both have taken, wherever you'd like to go.
I'll just do the pathway in general, because, we talked about it with Luca, RealCavsFans.com. It seems like especially with the new CBA and the aprons, they're making it harder to build dynasties and just sign everybody. So you really have to rely on your player development, player scouting. And I think Kobe Altman and his team were ahead of that curve, because, 3 of the guys that they got, I mean, you can count Max Strus, but he was a free agent signing after being in a finals appearance, like either the last pick in the draft or undrafted, with Dean Wade, Craig Porter Jr., and Sam Merrill. I love this new approach to basketball to highlight some more people or give some people more opportunities to be contributors on teams, not just kind of be doomed to the G League or never see an NBA court. So I love this new pathway of farming your talent and developing your talent so that they can come and be a contributor to your team. Kind of the buy low, high reward type of situation. And I just really love it. And kudos to Kobe Altman and his team for being ahead of the curve on that. Because, the first guy that we mentioned in this and starting this pathway was Dean Wade in 2019. And I don't think the CBA was 2022?
Yep. Tim, go ahead.
It's funny enough, Sam Merrill had like this weird kind of Tristan Thompson trajectory at the beginning of his career. Drafted by New Orleans, traded to Memphis, traded to Milwaukee, and then signed with the Kings. Got cut by the Kings without ever playing for them, and then went to Cleveland. So it had the weirdest, sorta journeyman before being a consistent player in the NBA thing going. But like you said, kind of been like a really great piece to the Cavs. Found different ways to contribute. Been just kind of expecting a shot. Also a guy you don't want to put on the foul line. He's at 97% this year. That's kind of insanity. Craig Porter Jr., I got to see a little bit in college just from covering the AAC at the time, and I thought for sure he was a draft pick. So the fact the Cavs got him undrafted on a 2-way, I thought was just a giant steal. And so far, I look pretty good with that thought.
Yeah, I think Craig Porter Jr. has a chance to be an elite defender, particularly of like smaller point guards. Like, yes. I think he has that level of quickness and athleticism and effort. Like, And if he can harness that skill like as kind of a weapon to go up against, the Tyrese Maxeys and Jalen Brunsons and all kinds of De'Aaron Fox, like those type of point guards, and have somebody that can come in for as long as you need them, 10 minutes, 20 minutes a night, and just give those guys hell. Like I really think combined with the fact that he is signed on such a cheap contract, I expect him to be like a contributor on the Cavs, even more so, much more so next season than he is this season.
Yeah, they have this Memphis game coming up. I'm really curious to see how much that Kenny uses him on Scottie Pippen Jr.
Yeah.
Does Craig Porter Jr. and what you think he could contribute to this team make it tougher to make a decision on an idea of bringing back Ty Jerome?
Nope.
No, because they have different skill sets. Like Ty Jerome is a bigger point guard that is frankly offensive focused. I mean, he gives great effort on defense, but like I think Ty Jerome has an element that Garland and Mitchell don't have just because of his size and the way he plays. And then Craig Porter, of the four of them, could far and away be the best defender out of those four. So I think when you're filling out the bench with guys, you're looking for guys who can either fill in for your stars if they're not there or complement your stars. And I think Craig Porter Jr., that's the biggest reason he has a chance to stick, because he has like really good athleticism for the NBA and chance to develop an elite skill that is not super prevalent on this roster.
Yeah. I mean, yes, maybe for Ty Jerome, but yeah, there's only so many spots and so many minutes. So you're choosing, and it might be Sam Merrill. Maybe Sam Merrill's the one that gets squeezed, but you basically have a choice this offseason between two of those three. And Craig Porter Jr. is still signed, so you really have a choice between the other two.
I think if they had their way, they would squeeze out Sam Merrill unless it becomes a money issue, because Ty is going to command a lot more money. So I think that's kind of how it would go, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but check out Bob's video for the Fear the Fro of kind of realistic people that could even go after Ty Jerome this offseason. Right. The list is very small.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, we're getting to the home stretch. Couple of housekeeping notes before we do finish up. We're not going to talk about the 3 two-way guys in this episode. That would be JT Thor, Luke Travers, Amani Bates, because they're not technically on the roster, and we hope that they will be. And they're guys that we talk about on an episode like this next year. But especially because they would be the next candidates to take this pathway that Dean Wade, Sam Merrill, Craig Porter Jr. has. For my money, I think JT Thor is the best of them to take that path. But other than that, we will, if those guys, if they get signed to the roster or anything else, we will certainly talk about them plenty. But for this, we will not. Okay, so we got 3 more, and Tim, the first 2 are yours. I'll have you start with Jalen Tyson.
Yeah, so the 20th pick in this past draft was a guy who really blossomed really well. So Skylar and I last week talked with the guy with, oh my God, this is really bad. Justin Rowan from the Chase Down. There you go. And we get into detail about the things he had to do at Cal and at Texas Tech, which really helped him quite a bit to kind of develop his skill set by having to have 2 different roles here. So really the sliding doors here, because the 2024 draft is very well known for not being a very good draft. The fact he did not make the Future Stars competition shocks me, to be honest with you. But the only guy who can really make a case that could have fit the Cavaliers is the guy who was picking right after him by New Orleans, Yves Missi, who has been really, really good for them. But I think Jalen Tyson was the right guy there. So I think he's going to be a guy who's fully going to quickly develop, like Kevin talked about Craig Porter Jr. I think Tyson's part of that next group to become high-level role players for the Cavaliers. And we're already starting to see glimpses of that with what he's done in games he's had to start this year, games where he's had to play big minutes for injury. He's really stepped up and did what was asked of him. So I am very excited to see what he does. And I suspect he'll be doing a lot. He'll be doing some time in Summer League this year to kind of refine his skills too. So.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think we've all talked about Jalen a lot. Like he has lots of raw ability, and it was just a matter of especially with the kind of aspirations that this Cavs team does, how much would they be able to play him and count on him this year versus developing him for future years? And I think they found a good balance. Like he found
For sure.
spots for him to play. They've done a nice tightrope of making sure he develops some while also kind of playing some of the guys who are a little bit more ready for big minutes than he is right now. And I think Jalen Tyson, I think he's going to be a winner. I think he has a chance to be a very solid role player for the Cavs as soon as next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
I won't
that's
tell you
the
guys who I
reason-
mocked here.
I think that's the reason the Cavs felt okay making the DeAndre Hunter trade and parting ways with Georges Niang is because they see Jalen Tyson being a core contributor and big contributor to the team, and especially in that bench unit. I think him showing that he can contribute at an NBA level made Kobe Altman and them feel okay making the trade.
Yeah, for sure. And because you mentioned him, DeAndre Hunter, obviously his Cavs career is consisted of 2 games, and we all like reacted to the trade with that and everything. I think that was a great move for the Cavs to make, and we're going to revisit DeAndre quite a bit as he starts getting acclimated and seeing how his role is going to take shape with the Cavs. But I wanted to end on one other person for the roster. Tim, this is also you. We want to talk about the acquisition of Kenny Atkinson.
Man, the most important acquisition probably besides Donovan Mitchell, right? So you kind of look at, there's a couple things that kind of had led to the dominoes of him ending up in Cleveland. We've obviously all heard the story about in Brooklyn. He wanted to play Jared Allen, and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving wanted to play DeAndre Jordan. Thanks for that one, guys. Got him fired. He spends a year with Ty Lue with the Clippers, which I really think helped him a lot as far as the defense, like the defensive side of the coaching. And then obviously we know it goes to Golden State. But the nugget in there that's really important that people don't seem to kind of gloss over. I don't know if they gloss over. Maybe I'm overselling it. He agreed to be the head coach of the Charlotte Hornets and backed out during the season when the Warriors won the title. He literally said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then after the title, said, I guess went to Steve Kerr and said, "Hey, can I stay?"
Yeah.
So he was this close to being where Charles Lee is right now. And that's a big, what if in Cavs history now for sure. But when JB Bickerstaff got let go, we kind of heard all the names of guys who could be out there. And he was the name that I kind of really had circled for, man, he'd be really awesome. So when the news came out that he took the job, I thought for sure. I didn't think they'd be as good as they are. Obviously, we've talked about that a million times, but I thought he was the perfect guy to hire because I really liked what he did with that Nets team when he was in charge. I mean, he made D'Angelo Russell an all-star. So if he can make D'Angelo Russell an all-star, what can he do with Darius Garland?
Two-time all-star.
Yeah. Kenny, the 2 things Kenny has done among a whole slew of things that he's done incredibly well. First of all, the offensive efficiency he has brought to this roster is way greater than anything we could have reasonably predicted. They have the best offensive rating in the league by a clear 2 points right now. And as good as this roster is talent-wise, it's not 2 points better than every other team in the NBA. Good, right? Some of this is give the players credit. They're playing incredibly well, whether they're, developing or just playing to their, at the best level they ever have. But some of this is scheme and some of it is, should be attributed to Kenny bringing out the best in this roster. The other thing he has done that you got to give him some credit for, along with the players, is just brought how we always talk about the good vibes, the enthusiasm. Like, this team looks like a college team during March Madness most
they do.
And that is atypical of the NBA, right? And so the fact that he has been able to simultaneously make them the best offensive team in the league and create maybe the best culture in the league is why he is a slam dunk runaway for Coach of the Year.
You made references.
Has to be.
This is something I always laugh at when I think back to Kenny Atkinson moments this year. But you mentioned the first OKC game. He's the coach interview before the fourth quarter because they're on TNT.
Yeah,
and they're in this really tight game. It's going back and forth. It's really competitive, and he's just like, "Isn't this awesome?"
Yeah,
he's like, "Isn't this great?"
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time, but it's not just us and fans that are seeing what Kenny is bringing to this team and what Kenny's getting out of this team. It's other players around the league, because I think Wendy had something either before the deadline or and it's something like that, but he said like players are calling their agents saying, I want to go to Cleveland because they are having so much fun. They are playing so well. They're playing the right brand of basketball. Like, he's not only transforming what we're doing here, he's making it a destination for other players to want to come here, which we've never seen that. No LeBron coach ever. I mean, LeBron would be the reason people came. Now it's not LeBron. It's the team. It's the coach. It's the culture. That's incredible. Like that, there's so much value in that we're seeing the dividends early in the first year of this coaching contract.
Yeah, you can't say enough about what he did. And like the other thing, and this kind of goes into the culture that we were talking about, but like he has got NBA players to buy into not care about their stats and care about the betterment of the team. And I don't want to, sound all down on NBA players if they only care about their stats or anything, but like you don't see up and down a roster guys sacrifice their team, particularly the star players sacrificing for the team the way this team does. And it's phenomenal. I mean, for me, all you have to look at is the success of the team and the way the players talk about him. Those two things like tell me everything I need to know about Kenny Atkinson, how well the Cavs did to hire him.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Well, that is everyone that we're going to talk about. We got just over an hour. I thought we might go an hour and a half with this, but like I do, and I'm going to turn to each of you for final thoughts. But the biggest reason we want to do this is because Kobe Altman and the Cavaliers built this team. I started out the podcast saying, I'm going to say it again. How you used to build NBA teams and how people don't build them anymore by patiently making moves to want to win, setting yourself up to win even years down the line. It's more of a small market baseball move than it is an NBA move nowadays. And the fact that if you go through all of these transactions he made, like say the 15 transactions, we're talking double digits of them were home runs. And none of them were total losers. He had a loser with the Kyrie trade, but that's like 8 years ago now. And we all need to let that one go. But ever since he has just been phenomenal. And despite not making any moves up until last week or a week ago with the DeAndre Hunter trade, has to be executive of the year. I know we're homers and we're talking about Kenny for coach of the year and him for executive of the year, but like, I don't know how you could go with anybody else. Tim, I'll let you go first. Kind of final thoughts on this kind of project we did about how this year's Cavs were shaped.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was really neat to kind of go back and kind of go through a few of these things. Looking back at like my old mock drafts to see where the Cavs had this guy, who did I take there? And I was like, oh man, this is why I don't do this for a living. But yeah, I just had a really good time with it, Kev. Thanks for the idea of putting this together. Yeah. This ended up being a really, really fun show. So this is a great time.
Skylar, what about you?
Yeah, I gotta give Kevin your flowers for putting this together. Obviously, you have kind of historians here all with you. I mean, I'm pretty sure Tim could tell us every college player's every game stats ever.
Not that crazy. No, not that crazy.
He's like the almanac over here. And I'm just the biggest Cavs homer that you guys know. But
that's why we brought you on.
Kudos to do what?
That's why we brought you on the show.
Hell yeah, gotta have me on. I gotta give Kobe his flowers in the sense of it, like you said, in small market baseball, which we know all too well, unfortunately, that he didn't take based off need. He always took the best available. Mm-hmm. So, for example, like getting Jared Allen, he already had two centers on his team, and Andre Drummond and JaVale McGee, who are still NBA producing players at that at that point, but didn't matter. Took Jared Allen anyway. Took Evan Mobley when they already had a starting center in Jared Allen. He just took the best available. He didn't take based off need, and that's such a you don't see that in NBA ever. So I think that, like you said, he zigged while everyone else zagged. So kudos to him. Love this Cavs team.
Yeah,
can't wait to go to a game here next 2 weeks.
Yes. Yes. I agree with this project. You almost appreciate this team more, the fact that it was such a slow burn, slow build, and everything. And we will wrap up this, and we're going to bring up something now that we're going to bring up on every show for the next couple of weeks. We are doing our first live show, March 2nd, Southern Tier Brewing. It's going to start at noon. The Cavs play at 3:30 that day against the Trailblazers. We're going to be there from noon to 2:30. We're going to do a lot of Q&A. We're going to have merch to give out. Basically just want to meet people and talk about Cavs. And so if you're either going to the game that day or you got your lunchtime free, come meet up with us, have a drink, grab a shirt, and we'd love to meet any and all of you. So with that, I don't know, you got anything to tease, Skylar or Tim, for the live event?
Delicious chicken wings at this place. Absolutely delicious.
Yes. Yeah. And we'll do some fun stuff. We'll maybe do some Cavs trivia, some giveaways, stuff like that. So the plans are still coming together for the specifics, but the date is down. We will be there. We're excited to get out and do this live and meet hopefully some of you there. So with that, for Skylar Webker, Tim Daniel, I am Kevin Lynch. Thank you to Blue Wire for letting us put on this podcast. Thank you to Kobe Altman for building the best team in the NBA and giving us enough material to make an hour and 12-minute episode out of this. Thank you to Kenny Atkinson, every one of the players. Thank you, All-Star break, that you're ending today. And with that, we will be back tomorrow night with the Cavs coming out of the All-Star break against the Nets tomorrow night. So for Tim, for Skylar, I'm Kevin Lynch. Have a great night, everybody. And as always,
go Cavs!